All right, start to feel more rather than less. Kind of open, like imagine that, or feel like it's not just imagine, but kind of allow like the pores on your skin can actually open, right? Like you can actually feel like my face is dry, it's winter, right? And so I have to kind of like get a sense of it. But then I'm gonna like try to really let it open. The skin on my hands open, my legs, like everything touches everything. And that kind of awareness is going to be easier if you relax the inside of your mouth and your jaw and all those things that we always do before we center. You're touching everything, and everything in the room with you is touching you, right? You're part of it. Like so often, that's a truth. This sounds goofy, but like I can let my skin feel and be more open to the room, but then I almost have to let my vision soften, right? Because my mind is so coming on my eyes that it's to actually receive your vision rather than having vision in order to do something with what's in front of what's around you, totally different. So that's part of why we have you soften around the temples and the eyes, is that you're just trying to shift to more pure receiving mode. And then start to feel your body. So make more overt input for your brain by pressing gently down on the floor or on your foot pedals, and find where your sit bones are and the center of your chest, and start to hit down and rise up. Stay grounded, stay balanced. Balance is a form of empty fullness. And that is better prepared for your breath when it's empty and full. Close your eyes from top to bottom if you haven't. Keep activating, keeping the spine, the back of the spine, migrating forward towards the front of the chest. Keep touching everything in the room, and you touch everything. It touches you. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good. And then release. Take your sternum up towards your chin down over your sternum. So you're activating, grounding, making the container and the energy of the container slightly more developed in this bandha. And just noticing your breath when the structure is more overt. Good. And then raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So one of the things that you know, as you know, I'm constantly fascinated by the mind-body relationship, right? And so one of the things that I've used or utilize my yoga practice for is to start to really notice more of, with practice, the different ways that I'm aware, right? And I really want to get like, so the centering part of class is really important. Like I say things like that's a door opener. You've got a dimension in you that isn't as tangible, all these things that the nervous system picks up and can sense both this way and that way. Like all those things are things that I constantly say, right? But I want you to just sit and notice, like so remember there are 8 limbs of yoga, and so meditation is one of the limbs, asana is one of the limbs, right? Pranayama is one of the limbs, breathing, right? So that's 3 out of the 8 right off the bat, right? And so centering crisscrosses with meditation and asana, so you're being a little bit more creating a structure, right? So, but typically throughout our day, how your mind knows where your body is that something has to activate. So like sit really still for a second. I mean, and it's hard to do, easier to do like in bed at night in the dark, but like so, and recognize that when everything gets quiet, your mind has a little bit harder time knowing where your body is in space, right? Unless you're looking at it. So part of awareness of our body comes from when something moves, right? So now if you like your ring finger right now, so as soon as I said it, you probably gently press it against something, right? But so now just move just your ring finger and notice how that's a reference that then your mind can hear, right? And so this is why I say things like mind enters the body through reference, right? That like, and so now sit up on your sitting bones. And then when I tell you to activate down through sitting bone, lift the lower abdomen up, right? That it's creating a reference. The action itself is creating a form of grounding so your mind can be more in the body, right? So, but a lot of what I teach in this class, this has to do with the holidays, right? Is awareness of space, right? Within and without, right? So when I tell you to balance your head over your neck, not only does that make you kind of have to feel, so balance your head over your neck, right? But when as I start to like try to equalize the space here between my ear and each shoulder, then I become, at least I do, become more aware of the room. And I often will say, so don't lean back in your chair, bring alert stillness to your spine, soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth. So this idea of feeling empty and full. So as I sit still, there's a form of emptiness because there isn't the reference, but I want the emptiness to feel full. So it's got dimension, even though it doesn't have as much content for my mind. It's with me. Was taking a few breaths. Now, breath awareness will bring you this awareness over time, but my teaching method is to kind of teach it backwards. So this ability to sense inward and outward, the emptiness and fullness at the same time. So without the inward emptiness, do you think it would be as easy to feel compassion, gratitude? Because self-sacrifice can come just from the mind, right? I'll do this for you, right? The difference in self-sacrifice and like compassion is not just that I'm thinking about it in relationship to another, right? I'm actually being the giving. right? Like it's coming from a slightly different place. I think this is a really, the holidays when they happen well open us all up at this level. And they also cause a lot of stress, right? This space can get sucked up into the stress too, right? So if you can't, bring your hands together in a prayer, otherwise putting on your lap or on the table. So this idea of being able to sense space, right? Especially on the inside. So I'm just taking some time because once I can start the cascade of awareness, right, then I can bring it everywhere in a yoga practice. So my hands are together. And in order to find the very center of my palm, which isn't actually touching the other hand, right? How do I find the place that's not touching? Right? So what's going to happen is that if you spread the bones of your fingers and whatever these are called, if you start spreading, but not too hard, because if you go too hard, everything shuts down. Right? So you're actually trying to find a place and receive it, not just assert it. Now, it wouldn't have to be your hands, because really, once you find that space, the center of your chest was already there. Good. And then release. So I remember when I first started to realize, and there's a difference between your imagination doing something and you receiving it. I remember I used to say this a lot when I teach centering. I used to say, pick a point on the inside behind your sternum and bring your hands out in front of you. And you could do it if you can't balance or whatever, put your hands on the table, right? And I would say, there's an inside point, and let your hands connecting be an outer manifestation of that inward point. So I would practice connecting things like this, right? So bring your hands together again. Now, if you relegate this awareness to the realm of the imagination, too bad for you, right? If you think this is coming out of your head, out of your judgment, right? Part of what's happening when you're trying to realize asana is that you're trying to receive or create a sensation of space without judgment, without action, right? So pick the point behind the sternum, connect it to the point between the hands, go to your sitting bones, and go to your feet, especially the inner edge of your heel. What's great is that the breath then can connect all of those points, right? It brings them to life. So you're just actually, and don't stay static with those points, because once you find those points, center of the chest, center of the palm, sitting bones, feet, that's just structure for you to keep expanding your integration. This is where, like asana, I remember having a yoga teacher, I used to object to this, Gary Kratzow, and I would have healthy disagreements. He would say, asana is not an end in itself. So now if I want to blow this connection of the empty space with my sense of fullness, right? I could over push my hands together. Push them too hard. Watch everything shut down. Right? It clamps down. Right? So I'm going to go back to that place where there's enough connection to keep my mind steady, but not too much. Otherwise, I'm forcing. But I want my body here. So right now I just lengthened my fingers, right? Because I want more of me here. I want to bring my body in line with the connection. not use my body to connect. Connection was already here. Good. And then release. All right. So this kind of like practice, I really recommend you start trying to practice this. And please don't think of it as mindfulness. It's way different than that. The mind, like, well, the thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about teaching this class this morning is that the judgmental part of the brain has to learn to sit on the lower brain stem, lower down in the brain, like in the more quote primitive, more integrated part of the brain. It's like you don't get there from the frontal cortex. It has to be different if you want the energy to be more pure. All right. So sit up straight and tall. So we're just going to start coming, the old wake ups, the old creaky, right? Like as you go back and forth a little bit, like maybe your weekend was great. Maybe you didn't move around as enough. Maybe who knows, but let it start to release, right? Let this time touch the time of the weekend and prepare you for the holidays, right? So it's like, wait, I'm in the middle always, right? Always in the middle of the past and the present, right? Right in the center, right? And then off to the side, right? So just start to wake up that spine. Notice the change of pressure and weight on your legs and sitting bones. Be everything. Feel as much as you can. Now, like I like to show myself, I'm going to drop my chest and do it and see what that feels like. This time I'm going to like open my chest and do it that way, like I'm leading from here. I'm going to drop and then open because my mind won't stay, well, needs to contrast and then go back and forward. I think, so I do this thing and we're just kind of open it up and then take the arm up and over, go to the right. And so I'm notorious for loving a song and hearing the lyrics, and they're not always right, but I like what I hear more than the lyrics are. So there's a line, and then come back to, you go both ways, right? There's a line in a Dave Matthews song Dave Matthews Band called The Warehouse, which I think the warehouse is the body, right? In the song. But he talks about how when eternity resets back to the middle, right? You're always in the middle, like always. So sit up straight and tall. So you've had a lot of holidays come through your system, right? So like, I'm just going to open. I'm not going to remember all of them. I don't have to have it be active memory, but I'm going to try to let them in. Like and as I do, of course there's some, I can feel some stuff. I miss my family. My Christmas changes a lot. When I was injured at 13, my father and sister were gone, but I'm not going to be afraid of like knowing that it's changed. And then there are going to be like holidays in front of me, right? So I'm just going to like let myself, and as I do that, I'm going to ground my sitting bones and ground my feet, right? So I'm going to like activate resetting the timeline I'm in, right? And it dissolves in the future and it dissolves in my past, right? And so I'm trying to like let time be part of my practice. Right? Time is going to be one of your teachers, right? In an asana, but in a lot of things. So those of us that are aging, I want to keep praying that I'll end up being a graceful, really old person, right? I want to like figure out how to have all this time. Boy, I hope I end up kind. I hope I don't end up as an old grumpy prick, right? Like I got time in front of me and time behind me, right? And I'm just sitting here thinking, right? Good. And then release. And again, back bend up and over the chair, just trying to get more active. Again, on Mondays in particular, I can usually tell, probably because I haven't slept as well or something, I'm not sure, that I'm a little bit more inflamed. I've got a little more inflammation in my body, right? And then going again like this. And going again like that, right? And then both arms up. and both arms down at my side. And then one arm up, left arm up, and then down. And then, so I'm just kind of like, and I've taught weird classes this year, like be the weaving between the earth and the sky. So as my left arm goes up, my sitting bones are being connected to the earth. My fingertips are trying to tickle the sky. And I'm trying to be a receiving conduit between the two. Like I'm actually trying to like be part of it. Right? Because remember, mind enters experience through reference and then come on up. Right? So my mind actually is a disruptor, but if I can find ways for my mind to be part of it, that's why yogis teach some of the asanas with images, right? So my sitting bones stay with the earth, my fingertips actually tickle the sky. Good, and then release. So my mind needs the boundary. Always the mind needs the boundary, right? So sit up straight and tall. Press on your knees, right? So you're getting this sense of pressing on your knees and lifting your chest. And then let it drop. And then push, ground, and lift. And then let it drop. Now do it with a little bit more rhythm, right? So at your own pace, like try to figure out how to let the rising and the falling happen, right? I have to pay particular attention to the fall. It's easy for my mind to follow the rise, but when I fall, my mind has to stay more steady, right? So I'm going, right? And I'm allowing, and I'm going to come farther forward and lift. And then at a certain point, I'm going to watch the fall. So there's a part and then come forward again. There's a part when I am forward and rise up, there is a place, because I don't have the same kind of trunk balance that most of you, but there's a place, even if you do, where you're coming back, and there's a place where you kind of lose control as you go through that point to fall back. Right? And then I'm opening and coming through again. Right? And so making the uncontrollable part graceful, right, is part of what yoga is. Right? So there I'm going through, here's my symbolic part, making it fluid. So I just naturally right there, I think this is interesting. Like right when I get this place where I'm switching, where the gravity's switching, it helps me not to inhale, but exhale right as I'm in that in-between space. Right? So again, you're forward. Right? You start to come back. You find that transition point where both worlds are right there. And I want to fall back and keep calm. So I exhale and forward again. What if I were better? What if we were better at being graceful in what's not controllable? Like your family dynamic during the holidays, right? And then fall back. And then one more time. With all the changes coming from COVID, right? Our family planning get-together has been just all mixed up this year, right? So again, I'm coming, I'm watching, I'm falling, making it graceful, making the fall part of the pose. So there's a transition here, right? Where I want the fall to be part of the momentum that opens my chest, right? So one more time. See, I love stuff like this. I love watching and feeling right where there are places to learn. Right? And then really stretch your arms down my sides, because my mind wouldn't pause to find that place of transition. Right? So stretch your arms down by your side. Lift under the collarbones. Broaden between the shoulder blades. Get down through the sitting bones. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. Bring structure and effort. Here comes my effort. Oh, damn, I'm rushing. See, I can tell I'm locking my right tricep and bicep before my left. What the hell? Wonder if that's why my neck tilts. I don't know. Maybe. Right. So I'm open. And then inhale and take the left arm up. And then exhale and bring it down. Grab behind you. Auger down as you lift up and turn. So your inhalation is actually part of the augering down. It's not just for the rise in the chest. And then exhale and keep driving down towards the earth as you rise up through the chest. More is not more in a yoga pose, by the way. And then come on back. Sometimes it is, but usually more is less. When there's more physical effort, there's less unity, right? Usually. Good, and then take the arm up. And then exhale it down. Find the places that work, right? So now I'm going to take time to feel the down, the augering down with the rise up. And when I do, it makes my spine receive up and down. When I feel the auger and the lift simultaneously, something happens, right? Lift, and so inhale, auger down with the inhalation and feel the rise. Then exhale and create space. Use the space, pardon me. So the inhale creates some space. The exhale utilizes the space, and so does the twist. Good, and then come on back. Be in the center again. So, like the exhalation, the inhalation, like creates some space. And then there's that pause at the top of the inhalation where you can take in what's actually occurred. And then the exhalation travels right through that space. Now, here's a weird deal. I want your exhalation today to help you find your bones. What does that even mean? I don't know. I know what it means though, right? So I want you to like push on your legs and maybe your knees back into your hip socket, right, a little bit. So you kind of get that bone feeling. So I want you, and don't push, and then don't push anymore. And then inhale. And then as you exhale, you're traveling through that space. You know what's your anchor? Your bones, right? So you're exhaling, the space expands on the inhalation. The exhalation, you travel through that expansion space, but it never goes past the bones, right? The bones are going to be your best solidity, right? So I know that sounds weird, but they're really important. They get to be part of your poses. So I'm making sure I'm expanding the space, exhaling. So I can't tell, but I swear to God, well, I can tell. I think this is true too for you also, is that, so put your arms by your sides, right? So, and I do it. I mean, those of you that can activate your legs need to keep your feet grounded and your inner heels, like not overly too hard pressing down, but stable on the floor, right? So when I'm like this, my arms, and I'm activating. There's a gentle, I'm aware of both the top and bottom of my arm, or bicep, tricep, right? But I'm going to take an inhalation. And when I exhalate, I wonder if you have this experience. I swear to God, my tricep goes towards the bone and my bicep lengthens. Like my exhalation moves the energy. Like I come towards the midline on exhalation, right? So now inhale and take the left arm up. So now that it's up, I want you to inhale and exhale and move the muscle towards the bone. As you rotate in, the tricep towards the ear. as you have your sitting bones and feet touch the floor and your fingertips touch the ceiling. Good. And then come on down. So one of the things we teach when I teach adaptive yoga teachers is that the space in the body, when you can give it direction with your effort, you can move the subtle body. So again, I'll take the other arm up and I'm hitting down and I'm rising up and I'm doing all the things. And I'm activating. So I'm feeling my inhalation and the expansion. And then on exhalation, I get taller. I touch the sky and the earth better. I go in both directions. And as I do, I'm shown alignment in my arm. Good, and then release. Okay, so now inhale up. Now we're going to add the twisting energy. So this energy starts to transform, right? So now once I've fallen a little bit as I take the arm off to the outside, right? And so that's okay, but I know I have to reinvigorate the rise. So I have to activate the fall, go with the fall, hit down, auger down, lift the chest while augering down. Now use your breath to do it too. Inhale, auger down, exhale, revolve. So in a way, in a twist, you're just getting taller. You're not just twisting. It's more important that you get taller. So the exhalation is where you actually do more of the twisting. The inhalation is more of the expansion. Good, and then come on back to center. So I'm kind of wondering if my words actually are making sense to you. So the inhalation is making space. The exhalation is moving through that space into a twist. So here now I go up again with the other arm. And I'm trying to like have my inhalation make space, my exhalation bring me towards the midline or towards the bone. Notice your bones are typically on the midline of whatever flesh you have, right? And then I'm going to exhale down. I'm going to position the other arm and I'm going to watch the space created by the inhalation, both down, up, and expansive. And I'm going to use the exhalation to get me taller. So there's a big extra dynamic when you enter a twist, but you're twisting the space, not just your controlled flesh. Good, and then come on back to center. So again, so the idea is that you're making expansion, you're using that energy, you're traveling through the expansion back towards the bone, but in a twist, you're adding, right, another like variable to the energy in your spine. So inhale up. So now I'm going towards the bone. I'm going towards the midline, going down and up, right? And then I'm adding this dimension. So go slow, add this twisting dimension, but try not to let your spine collapse, right? I'm adding the dimension. So now once I get the grounding for my mind, I'm going to lift my chest again. So I get the lift up again because I was falling right there, just slightly. And I take the other hand, find it. So now I'm going to take a breath here, and rather than twist right away, I'm going to use my exhalation to find my bones and my grounding. Already, as soon as I start doing that, I start twisting, right? I can't even change. I can't not twist, right? So now inhale again, create space up, down, and around, and then exhale as you move towards the midline, as you turn. And one more time, use your breath to create space. Exhale through that space and have the body move through the space. So you're twisting the parts of you, not just your physical parts, but the spaces. Good. And then come on back to center. Feel the center. So I'm gonna want to. We twisted. At least I twisted pretty deeply there. So, not just physically, but energetically. So, I'm gonna find center again. Remember, when I'm teaching yoga, I'm trying to show you how to practice too, right? So I'm paying attention so I can integrate. So I'm sitting straight up and tall, and I'm practicing symmetry for a second. So this empty dimension, if you try to find it from the frontal cortex with judgment, you won't. You have to let it be here and let it inform my body. So as I find my midline, then I can open my chest differently. Didn't realize how much my mind was the problem. Or a problem, not the problem. I don't know. Good. And now come farther forward. And lift. And then release. So you're concaving and convexing your spine. Lift. And then release. It's so much more than cat cow, actually. Right? I don't even know how it's cow, cat. No. Well, maybe cows have suede backs, I don't know, when they're old. Right? Lift up again. So I'm going back and forth. And now I want to make it a little bit more rhythmic. Right? So I'm going a little bit slower, a little bit slinkier, not being in a rush. Right? And I'm going to add when I rise up, I'm going to probably inhale, right? And then when I drop, I'm probably going to exhale. Right? And then inhale up. Exhale back. Come back to center. Let's occupy more space. It's been a lot of work at the midline. So you're going to take your feet off the pedal or spread them a little bit. Right. So one of the things I have to practice, I tend to collapse into my low spine there. So I'm going to grab my wheelchair, like those of you that don't have as much abdominal control, right? I'm going to grab my wheelchair to rise up here, but I want to get the separation of my lower abdomen from my legs, right? So when I can differentiate my femur bones from my lower abdomen, I actually feel more full in that quiet emptiness, right? And then I'm going to watch what happens when I drop my spine. Drop your spine. Like all of a sudden, it's like, wait, my breath doesn't get nearly as deep. All these things change. So now I'm going to activate again, hit down, lift up, let my breath press against each side of my rib cage. And then drop again. And notice your breath then goes more just to the top part of your nose and your very top of your chest, not down your sitting bones. So activate again. So now we're using the body to distribute the breath more equally through the entire pose. And then collapsing. So when I collapse, and if I were to try to repeat the fullness of sensation, I would really have to push my inhalation. It's not impossible, but it would be more violent, right? So I'm going to activate again, using my body as the distributor of my breath, right? And then I'm going to lean over to the left and grab up on the right, right? So I'm grabbing on the back of my chair. I don't know what you're going to do. Figure it out, right? And now I'm getting really active, right? All of a sudden. So this idea that now the pose gets harder, but can you keep the spaces open as you twist with more intensity. Good, and then release. Now I'm pretty sure on this other side, I'm not going to be able to get my arm up on the back of my chair, right? I'm going to have to like live, not expect or push. So I'm going to come forward. Yeah, it doesn't quite fit. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I do less yoga if I do it, so I'm going to find a different spot, right? And I'm going to like activate, feel the intensity of the twist. So it's going to get more muscular, right? But I'm still trying to keep the spaces open at the same time. Good, and then release. And then bring your feet back towards the midline. So remember, I love through lines. So the difference between being more forward and getting more into the intense twist, right, is the same. And then noticing that I have to reopen the empty spaces or the space in my body. It's no different in principle than what I was doing here. So bring your hands back into prayer, right? So if you just crank a twist to get farther, it's gonna be like pushing your hands together too hard. The heel of your hands are enough, Dave, right? So it's like pushing too hard there, right? You actually shut things down. But when you actually try to, like, wherever you can make contact with your hands, open the skin, right? When you actually open the spaces, keep them open as you start pressing the heel of your hand together harder, right? You can get a lot of the intensity, but then if you let go of your hands and just press on the heel of your hands, the space between your palms shuts down again, right? And then release. This principle is happening in this twist, right? So this twist, inhale, take your left arm up and just come off to the side. Take the other hand behind you wherever you do, right? This space, I'm this twist where I'm not forward and more cranked. I can get empty spaces in my pose better through my inhalation, right? And by feeling the sensation of my own emptiness, right? So I'm going to inhale and then exhale, revolve, come towards the midline, come towards the bone, right? Throughout my entire body, right? And then inhale again and make the expansive space, but make sure the space is going down, up, and revolving, right? And then exhale towards the midline. Good, and then release and come on back to center. So when I'm farther back, inhale, take up, exhale, go this way. Find where your arm's gonna be. Like when I'm not having as much intensity, I can keep the open spaces in the twist better. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. So you're creating a space and then you're traveling through it to lengthen and move towards the midline. Move towards the midline and lengthen is probably better. Good, and then come on back to center. So when I come forward and open up and twist, so now I've got a different, more aggressive posture, right? And like my inhalation is not going to be as effective at creating space, right? And I don't want to use my breath violently, right? So I'm going to open this space, open my rib cage, lengthen down to the sitting bones up to the top of my head. And so my breath doesn't have to be as deep, but it can touch everything as I revolve. These forward twists are more willful. And they probably have more physical therapeutic benefit. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. Now I'm going to come forward again. Take my arm up, wherever it's going to be. Ooh, check it out. I got my arm up on my handle on the second time. My body changes in the course of this, right? Notice your own changes like that. Couldn't do it the first round, right? But I didn't have to try for the second round. And then I'm going to ground. Notice that like the river's going through the pipe, the water's going through the pipe faster when I'm forward like this. But I want to open the spaces with my body by feeling my rib cage, by feeling my skin, by feeling my feet, by feeling my sitting bones, by lengthening my spine. And then letting I can't take as deep a breath, but whatever breath I have now can follow my body. And then exhale, I'm going to move towards the midline on exhalation. Good. And then come on back to center. Be in the center. So I'm pausing. I'm going to rebalance my head over my neck. I'm going to do, because I know my efforting just threw me off balance, covered up part of my emptiness. So I'm refinding it in breathing. So one of the things about twists, supposedly, and here's how I understand it, right, is that twists help with grief. Okay, so, and I don't know how direct that is. It's not like taking an aspirin or whatever, but I do think it's because it activates it. You're actually twisting empty space, right? You're not just twisting your physical body, the thing the way I've been teaching it, because you ever had grief, right? It kind of gets metaphorically in your pores, right? Like it gets at that quiet part of you. In like that first level of, it can be years of like compensating, right? And pushing out and acting as if everything's fine. That's all part of that willful part, but the release of the deeper part of the grief is it's in the very empty spaces of your body, right? And so you want the difference in these two twists, right? So do the one that's more expansive. So I'm not even going to take my arm over to the side. I'm just going to like open and expand. I'm going to watch, right? Where I'm having more freedom, right? And then come back to center. And then go this way. And I'm using the freedom, the lightness of it for my empty space. And then come back. So you know when you're like wringing out a dish rag, and at first the water comes out fast, right? You get saturated, and you don't have to squeeze too hard. And then if you're a little bit anal, and there's diminishing returns, if you want to get more and more of the water out, you can squeeze harder and harder and wring the dish rag harder and harder, right? And one of the things, this would be a metaphor, but as I age, I realize that wringing the dish rag to the very nth degree isn't that important. It's probably just easier to throw it in the laundry more often, right? There are other solutions here, okay? But if I want to wring the rag farther, come forward, ground, activate, make this strong, make it strong, make it forward. So because you're forward, the flow of your prana has got more container and it's going a little faster, right? And then go a little farther to grab where your other hand goes. So again, now I'm actually grabbing my knee, my opposite knee with that hand, like I am really getting ready, right? But I don't want to lose the grace. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to pause and let the body position and me activating the empty spaces make me twist a little bit more, not just me pulling and cranking. I want to dip, I want this, like, so I'm making spaces between my shoulder blades right now and across my sacrum, which just by spreading there, I twist more. So I'm twisting the empty spaces, even though the pipe is narrower. Good. And then come on back to center. The thing you got to be careful is when someone's like, I don't know, in grief or whatever, they tend to want, either they don't want to act at all or they act too hard and become violent, right? And this happens in yoga poses when you're teaching students. You watch them, when they're in a bad mood or a bad place, they tend to work too hard, right? So I'm going to come forward again, right? And I'm going to watch that starts, and as I lengthen my spine, right, especially my lower back, the water starts to go faster. Then I'm going to grab on my chair wherever I'm going to go. I'm making the pose. So I got to get my rib cage together towards the midline. And so I've got the container to make the water rush, but I need to surrender to make sure there's still space in the rushing water. So my inhalation makes slightly more space, but where there's like more gravity or resistance. So I don't have to push as hard. I just have to use the breath a little bit and let the direction of the physical pose increase the water flow. And then I'm going to open. All of me is going to twist in this intensity. Good. And then release. So I'm going to use the body position to get more water out of the rag without squeezing the rag too hard. Right? So it's the difference between preparing your rag by twisting it up and coiling it and then squeezing, as opposed to just trying to do it right away, right? And so again, now lengthen your spine. So as you hit down through the sitting bones and rise up, hit down through the feet. Soften your jaw around the temples. Balance your head over your neck. One thing that's a strange, wonderful component that actually helps the meaning of your joy during the holidays is that little underlying sadness that's there too, right? For whatever. And they're both part of the holiday spirit, whatever that means. So I'm just going to sit here and let all of me be in my symmetry. Of course, on the first layer of allowing this, I can tell I overworked my inner right shoulder blade. There are things that are like tickling my brain right now. I'm going to try to exhale through those. And just because I want a little bit more sunlight in what's going to be Shavasana, you don't have to do this. I'm going to gently back that. I'm going to go back up and over to remind myself about the spaciousness, opening the hood of the chest, right? Because I want to make sure I'm nourishing everything. And then come back to center. And now you got to after you've done that, you've got to let your eyes drop. So like the underside of your eyes needs to receive the floor. Because Shavasana is more about receiving the floor than it is about touching the sky. If you do touch the sky, you touch the sky blind, right? You don't have sight in Shavasana. So start to feel the symmetry, preparing for Shavasana. You do actually touch the sky in Shavasana, just not with your sight. Soften around the temples, the jaw, and the inside of your mouth. Balance. and receive. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. When you're ready, start to gently increase your breath, your inhalation, your exhalation. Open your eyes. Close them if it's too bright. Open them again. So I'm not sure why this popped in my head. I've been thinking about this story that my Patricia Francisco, who I work with now, but who was my writing teacher for the only writing workshop I ever took. A few years back, she sent me, because I've been fascinated by being able to tell a story like in a sentence or a couple. Um, and so then most of the story is untold. Okay, so like for example, this isn't it, but Robert Johnson, if you know him as a blues guitarist in the 20s and early 30s, right? Eric Clapton wrote, he's considered to be maybe the best guitar player that ever played. And that's that, like at the crossroads, the mythology about him is that he sold his soul in order to play how he did. But Eric Clapton would say that it's not even what Robert Johnson played, it was what he didn't play, what could make you hear, right? So he touched enough places, didn't play the 3 or 4 songs he was playing at the same time. But if you could hear, he could help you hear them by visiting them just enough, which strikes me as part of what asana does, right? It's not even what's being moved, it's what isn't being moved so overtly. So the long story longer, here's the short story that and I'm not sure if I'm going to paraphrase it right. Um, it's like 2 lines. Are you going to leave on your cross? No. Aren't you going to take off your cross? And then the other voice says, are you going to leave on your watch? That's the whole story. That's some freaking great writing. Right? That's one of those stories you go, oh my God, there is so much going on. So one of my points is try to find the part of the story or of this holiday and let that get nourished. Right? All right. Hands together, everybody. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.